We have 1 week to go in the regular season. The playoffs are right around the corner. And everyone tells me defense wins championships. Eric, let's at least discuss the best defenses in the NFL right now. You've been running through all the numbers, right? You always run, sprint, jog
Just
through the numbers?
Run through the numbers, yeah.
Perfect. And I'm curious to know what you found. Who are the best defenses in the NFL right now?
Yeah, and it depends upon how you slice it, honestly. You know, there are teams that are grading well defensively. Chicago is, I think, in terms of like their 11 players grading well on a play-for-play basis, they're the best defense in the NFL. But if you look at things that carry probably a little bit further, like early down success, Baltimore, for example, is giving up an early down passing success at a rate of just 45%. That's the best in the NFL, and we've seen the fruits of that labor. And you put teams in long yardage situations, you end up with good outcomes, as we saw Saturday against the Chargers.
Explain that real quick, though. You're talking early downs. A lot of people like to point to third down defense.
Yeah.
This team's great on third down, great on third down. Why are you focusing on the early down stuff right now?
Yeah, I mean, third down grades, you know, high leverage situations, we see like they impact games a lot. They're very explanatory in terms of what happens, but in terms of predictability, it's a little bit more noisy. So what we like to look at is on first and second downs, you get twice as high of a sample, usually actually more than that. But you also get, you also understand what sort of positions other offenses are put in against these teams. So when you look at a team like Baltimore, they're giving up, unsuccessful passes more than, 55% of the time on first down. That's second and long. You put a team in a precarious position. Another team that I like, and looking at it through this lens, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I know they haven't had the team success that they had a season ago in many ways because of their offense, but Jacksonville's allowing early down run plays to grade successfully less than 30% of the time, the best rate in the NFL. I think carrying their defense into 2018, maybe not as good as 2017, but certainly one of the top groups.
Yeah, and this is one of those years where it doesn't feel like there's just this elite defense. Last year we were talking about the Jaguars as one of those top defenses for a while. The Bears are excellent, but it does feel like a year, because there's been so much offense, there isn't just top 5 defenses that just separate themselves from everyone else. There's just a cluster of teams. I do think the Bears make sense as the top team. They've just made life difficult on opposing quarterbacks week in, week out. As I was looking at some of your rankings, though, some surprising teams that have had some ups and downs this year. The Rams, the Vikings, a couple teams. Do they fly under the radar a little bit because they had some bad games early?
Yep, and the Saints as well, right? So we all remember the Saints giving up 48 points in week 1 to Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Buccaneers, but over the course of the last few weeks, we've seen them be extremely impressive, forcing a key turnover last week against Pittsburgh. Eli Apple's come in. They've really integrated a system around him that's made him successful. Marshawn Lattimore early in the season struggled. He's been very good of late, and so that team is another team where we've seen them increase over the last, I would say, 2 or 3 months. The Rams are a team that are allowing a negative EPA on early down passes, and that's a little bit surprising because we saw when Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters got hurt. Peters tried to play through it. He really struggled. But over the last few weeks, they've played pretty under games, lower scoring games, and that's been kind of keeping them afloat.
Is that all Aaron Donald with the Rams, though, too? Because they've had some injuries and, they've had some issues in the secondary, but Aaron Donald having just an historic season from a PFF production standpoint and even just from a value standpoint, right? Like, we don't see guys add value like that from an interior defensive line position.
Yeah, John Johnson, a safety, second-year player. He's, a top 100 player in terms of our WAR metric. He's been extremely good. We've seen some improvement from the cornerbacks with Aqib Talib coming back, Marcus Peters playing a little bit better. But yeah, it is mostly Donald who's carrying that defense as a one-man show.
All right, 2 more defenses I just want to discuss really quick. The Houston Texans. The Texans won the AFC South, and then the Dallas Cowboys, they win the NFC East. Both of those defenses, again, ups and downs, but I think a lot of people remember the Cowboys in particular shutting down the Saints and putting together some really incredible outings, but what's their consistency been like from week to week?
Yeah, I think one of the issues to look at with Houston, for example, is they've played one of the 2 easiest schedules in the NFL, right? So when you're going up against, the Josh Allens of the world, the Nathan Petermans of the world, those types of quarterbacks, they're going to give you plays that we're not necessarily positively grading that will be great, in terms of outcomes. So there's that. Dallas also similarly, they're in a down division, so they're playing sort of weaker teams at times. But I would say, yeah, it's mostly a consistency issue. We see Dallas hold New Orleans to 10 points on a Thursday night and then get shut out, but give up more than 20 points against an Indianapolis team just a couple weeks later. So it's really just one of those things where defense is one of those unstable variables. It's far more easy to predict offense, and so some of these teams that we see pop up on a week, they can look like the best defense in the NFL. They can look like a middling defense in other weeks. So I think that's reflected here in sort of the way in which we size up these units.
So I think what you've described with the numbers is how I've described defenses for a while, though. It's just, in any given week, you want a unit capable of putting together a top performance. And all of these teams that we mentioned are capable of doing that. And I think that's where you say, it's not stable week to week. It's tough to rely upon. You just hope you have the pieces to be able to put together a really good game. So we saying the Bears officially the number one?
Yeah, and I think that's been a big part of their comeback. Last season, we really liked the Bears from a grades perspective. They were a top 5 defense for us. That seems to have been predictive of what's going on this year. A lot of they're really good not only in the draft perspective with Leonard Floyd's and Eddie Jackson's, and so Kyle Fuller, but they've also acquired players through trades and free agency, Akeem Hicks. Khalil Mack, Danny Trevathan, those kind of players. So, they're kind of good no matter how you slice it.
Good job rattling off all of their players. Are you the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams?
Yeah, I don't know. The Rams didn't perform all that well that night, so who knows how good of a predictor that is.
Very impressed, though, that you can name 6 Chicago Bears. The best defense in the NFL. It is in Chicago.